Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the show where people come to improve their relationships, both at home and at work. And they transform from not knowing how to start that tough conversation all the way to feeling confident using their voice without losing their cool. I'm Joyce Weiss, your host, and I'm thrilled to have a guest that just blew my mind when we met on LinkedIn. And I have a special video introduction. Here you go. At her day job, Andrea Raffler works at a retail store and has done so for the past 7 years. She also does Rover on the side. She's enjoyed working retail because of the repetitive nature and from the fast-paced environment. However, she's actively looking to make a switch to a new career. She uses attention to detail in her current workplace. 2 fun facts about Andrea are that she soaks up information like a sponge and that she loves to draw in her spare time.
Hey,
Hello, and welcome to the show, Andrea.
Hi, how are you?
I am geeked, as they say, because as you know, we were strangers until about 2 weeks ago. And I always send out an invitation to the new connections. If you would like to be a guest on my show, just let me know. And Andrea, you just grabbed onto that. So I am so glad that you're here. And as a millennial, you're a perfect guest because we're going to have a conversation about how companies can keep their millennials happily employed so they don't leave. How does this sound?
Well, I hope that I can help you.
Well, I know that you can because we had a conversation before and we're just going to have a little longer one now.
Okay.
So let's first go to the first question was, as a millennial, what will keep you at a new job?
Honestly, if I knew that conflict would be taken care of as soon as possible to avoid a toxic work environment, that would keep me at my job. Competent bosses that go the extra mile to show how much they value their employees would mean the world to me. And honestly, if I knew that I was going to be paid at a good rate, that would keep me as well, because no one likes being paid under what they should be.
No, and you said something very important at the beginning of this question is that if I knew the conflict would be taken care of immediately as soon as possible. And Andrea, I find that many of my many of my guests who happen to be millennials say that that is the same thing that they feel. That many times the conflict is just swept under the rug and it's not dealt with. And that's because either leaders don't know how, they don't have the skills, or they're so busy. So that's a great answer. Love it. What can the company do to welcome you when you get a new job and your first day of work? How can you feel welcomed?
By having an open door policy and by taking care of their employees. Number one thing, honestly, is taking care of us, because a happy employee means retention.
And when you say take care of employees, because you've had a few jobs, so I know, what does that mean? Take care of employees.
So that means making sure that we have health benefits, that we have an ear to listen to, because sometimes if even though you can try to keep it at the door, it's sometimes not possible to leave your personal life at home. So having someone who will be able to talk to you is also a beautiful thing. Just not being standoffish, if I really had to say it. and just showing that they care in whatever way and putting effort into training your employees the proper way so that you have someone who knows what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. So when you say taking care of employees, you really mean for them to have a heart, for them to not just have a brain and also a heart, to understand that everybody needs to be taken care of. They need to
Yeah.
they need to feel heard. And I know I find this in almost all of my interviews and even in my coaching practice. When people say, I don't stay there because I did not feel heard. And that is the underlying theme. That's really what I'm all about. And now we get to an important question. So you got the job. How about a sense of belonging? How can they keep you there?
That's a good question, Joyce. If I had to think of it, I would say, like I said earlier, by being trained the same way as everyone else. It would deter conflict over the workload for me, and I would be happy knowing that I got the same amount of knowledge as the rest. By as the rest, I mean as the rest of everyone else. I won't have to worry about whether or not I was trained properly, because that's something that we worry about, or at least I do. I would say also that I really hate finding out there was an even better solution that I could have taken if I had the information just a few moments ago. Honestly, that's my number one pet peeve in the workplace.
And I want you to comment on that a little bit, because that shows what kind of professional you are. That you want the training because obviously in the past maybe you didn't have good training, I don't know, and you want to know as much as possible so you can resolve issues at work. And we can't resolve issues competently if we don't know what to do.
Exactly. Like, I love bosses who want to make sure that their employees shine, and because it's a reflection on who they are as a boss. And if you don't take care of your employees, you don't invest in their training, how are they supposed to get their work done? Because we are not mind readers for your for we are not mind readers, period,
Yes.
honestly.
Yes. And not and I again, this is a common occurrence that I find with many of my guests who say, I've got the desire to work. I've got the desire to help. I've got the desire to learn and get better. But so many times they say, I'm taken for granted, or the training just didn't help me move forward. And what do you, because with the few jobs that you've had, and not just few, because you've been there in the introduction, I already said, 6 or 7 years at the same place. What challenges did you have with other companies who didn't train you as well as you obviously need to be? Because you are growth minded, Andrea. There's no doubt. You pick up things, like you said, you're a sponge. So, what kind of challenges did you have in the past with companies that didn't train you?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is that, especially for me, I was not appreciated. I did not feel appreciated, seen, or heard in the past, to the point where if I would leave that company or leave that store and come back later, it wasn't until I left that they realized the value of what I brought to the table, because they took it for granted. And honestly, they would always say, Andrea, please come back. And I'm just like, haha, no.
Too late.
Too
You
late.
had
You
your
had me
chance.
and you lost me.
And then with that conversation, when they're in the begging stage of wanting you to come back, did they ever ask you, well, what did we do wrong, or how could we improve?
No, never. And they were just like, I think you're one was very bold with me and said, "I think you're going to come back." I said, "I think that I'm not, if I'm going to be completely honest." And then he stopped and we stared at each other for a little bit, and then he begged me. He's like, "Please don't go." And I'm like, "I'm sorry."
So this is a perfect example for those of you who are watching, whether it's now or later when it's not live, is those exit interviews. Ask people when they leave, why? What could we have done better? And I find that many times it's so basic, and we know this, but many times people don't ask that important question, because if so, people like Andrea, and it's like you're not even here, right? People like you, Andrea, would be honest, and you'd say, or maybe they wouldn't, but I know you would. And people who are growth minded would say, hey, I'm ready to go on to another culture that is not toxic, and explain why. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime.
Now, bullies. I love this topic because yes, I have been bullied many times. Yes, Joyce Weiss, the conflict resolution queen, has been bullied, and I've learned how to overcome that. And that's why one of the reasons why I do what I do as the queen of conflict resolution. So now let's get to you, Andrea. Have you been bullied in your workforce and your work life?
Honestly, yes, I have. And honestly, at one point in time, you may not believe this, but I was the work bully too.
No. Wait a
Yes,
minute. Oh, well,
honestly.
okay, well, what happened? Why were you the bully? What did you do, you mean girl?
So honestly, what was happening with me at the time, and this is no longer who I am. I have
Mhm.
long since taken care of myself and made sure that I'm a different person. I have grown so much since then. But honestly, I was in a very insecure state. There was a lot of stuff that was going on in my personal life that I just didn't know how to handle. And so I buckled down and thought, well, if there's nothing I can do about my personal life, I can at least make sure that my work life is completely different. So I wanted to make sure that ran as smoothly as possible, no matter what. And I took
Mhm.
the training that I got from my boss and tried to apply it to everyone else and make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to as well, so that I felt safe and that I felt better about myself, because my personal life was completely unmanageable. But work life was supposed to be a different story.
So you took total responsibility. You knew that you were a bully. Oh, now talking about bully, your dog is saying, "Hey, I want attention too."
Yeah.
So, what's your dog's name?
There's Davros and Jack.
Well, well, I only heard one. So you took your situation at a bully, and like you said, that was me before. You worked on your professional and personal growth, and no more bully. So
No more
now
bully.
you've been, well, congratulations,
Thank
huge,
you.
because not many guests will admit that they were bullies too. So you are very unique, lady.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. So how were you bullied? And well, first tell me that, then I'll ask you.
Okay. Let's see. What good example would it be? Okay. So, at a previous store that I was at, in my place of or my workplace,
Mhm.
there was a situation that I was in where my boss was not uh, appreciating me as much as she should be. I felt like I was constantly cleaning up her messes, and I tried to train her as I was supposed to, because I wanted her to succeed. Now, this is not coming from a bully stand place. This is
Mhm.
just from a I've been there. I know what it's like to not have that training. So I want to train you so that you know what you're doing. And she did not want anything to do with it. She was an older woman and she did not see the value of having a younger employee train her. She just didn't like it. And there's nothing I can do. I can't age faster than anyone else. It's not like I can catch up and say, listen, here you go, and suddenly be her peer. And so I was constantly cleaning up after her, and my morale was very, very low.
So, no, go on. Sorry.
You're all right. And so the situation was that I was trying to make a transfer to another store to get out of that situation. And I was talking to this employee for a little while, texting her, and she's like, "We need a person here too. Why don't you come over here?" And I was like, and I was desperate, so I said, "Yeah, sure." And then she put herself forward and made it seem like, or she, I don't want to say she harassed, but she made her opinion very well known to our higher up that she wants me over here at her store. So he made the transfer after a little while, and I was so excited because I was like, this is a fresh start. I can get away from that bully mentality. I can make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I can actually relax and I don't have to clean up after anyone. And honestly, I was in a very bad state work-wise. I did not trust anyone. I didn't trust anything.
Of course.
Yeah, after everything. And I was super excited, so I doubled down on making sure that I was doing everything I should. And then I realized real quick that she only brought me on so that she could go into her car and self-medicate, shall we say, and have me do all the work for her.
So wait a minute. This happened twice?
This was happening at the new store that I was trying to go to. Not that it happened twice.
Okay, so then how did you get out of that situation?
So the bullying is that I would try to talk to my boss about it, and he would go and talk to her and try and fix the situation because that's the type of boss he is. I love my boss. He is not without flaws, but he at least tries.
Yes.
And he would talk to her, and then she would get this personal vendetta. I have been there, but she would think that she was being personally attacked. So she would turn around and see if she could make it seem like I'm the one who's in trouble. So she would tell me, like, I can't think of a way to put this, but she would tell me that that it would be okay to do a certain thing that he wouldn't mind. So, even if I knew that I was against it, and I was like, I don't think so. I didn't fall for it for a few times, but she got sneakier about it. And then as soon as I would do that for a little bit, do that particular thing, she would then go and tell my boss that there's a problem. And then I would get in trouble. So it would seem like anything that I said just went out the window.
So note to self and note to everyone who is listening that when someone does that, it tells you in a productive way, like you did, Andrea. I mean, you didn't necessarily say, hey, I want to train you, to some of your bullies. But you were able to, again, give the right reasons. You were speaking from your heart. I can't help it that I'm not your age. Forget about age. Let's figure out how we can work together. There was no blame. You just wanted to move beyond it. And you can't have a conversation like that excuse me, let me put my ear back. You can't have a conversation with someone who's closed.
No.
So being open. I know a secret sauce that I have that I'm going to be talking about in different shows is that I thrive on constructive feedback from people who give it in a way that's constructive. If you came across as a vindictive individual to those people those bullies, that's a whole different conversation. So, those of you who are watching and listening, next time somebody comes, and especially if it is a millennial and gives you feedback and it's done in the right way, don't push back. Welcome that. So that's excellent. Excellent. Yay for you that you
Thank
have
you.
those skills. Now I got to ask you though, because you're so assertive and you're so strong. Have you always been that way?
Honestly, no. I was the other way entirely. I just had no boundaries. I had nothing to do with anything like that. What happened is that I had to learn to be that way. I took videos. I looked up videos on how to be more assertive. I did my homework and my background so that I could become this assertive person. And the funny thing is that I swung to the opposite direction where I was overly assertive. And then my boss, my poor boss at the time had so much patience for me, but he's like, "You're being way too assertive. You need to dial that back from 11 down to about 6." So then we had to work together to stop that. So now I'm somewhere around the happy medium.
Oh my gosh. And full disclosure here is that when Andrew came on in the studio right before the show, we were talking and I said, how are you doing? Because sometimes guests are nervous. She wasn't. And she said, hey, if it goes well, I'd love to come back. Now, folks, is that aggressive? Nope. Is that passive? Nope. Is that a woman who is strong and who knows how to take care of herself? You bet. Because you just put that thought in my mind. Wow. What other questions could I ask a millennial to come in? Because so many times with that great, oh, it's not great, but people are leaving more and more, the great resignation. You're going to have to come back. I mean, I was going to invite you anyway, but thank you for being assertive
You're
and so
welcome.
strong. So, the last question
Okay.
before we end is that um, did you ever have a really bad boss?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, it was that one boss that I mentioned where I felt like I was constantly cleaning up with her.
And you told us already how you handled that situation.
Yes, but previous bosses in the past, the way that
Mhm.
I handled them is by trying consistently to find common ground between myself and my bosses, whether personal life or work life, and if necessary, escalating the problems to their bosses. Now, I don't always recommend that, but as you can imagine, it did not always go well, so I made sure that was the last resort.
No, but that's a risk. Anything, the minute we open up our mouths, it's a risk. You never know what you're gonna say or someone else. But finding common ground, and that's a secret. That's a secret in any conflict. In our minds, we have to figure out how are we alike in order to move forward. We don't. You can't even say that, but you finding common ground. Of course, you're not going to do that right away. It didn't. I'm sure it backfired at times, like you said. But that's a great start. And if the worst thing that happens is what is let's because you have tried that as a last resort. What's the worst thing that could happen is if you opened your mouth to a boss after you found some common ground and the conversation didn't go well. What's the worst thing that would have happened?
That the boss would take it as a personal offense and then try to talk to me about it. or just doesn't talk to me about it at all and just negatively internalizes it.
Yes. Yes. And that's a big risk. So that's why I love that you said that's your last resort, because retaliation is still so possible. But I always say in all my blogs and videos, if you plan the conflict, you plan the conversation, yes, it's a risk, but I would rather open up my mouth than hold it in. Then we have to end up going to doctors and they say, stress is killing you. We don't want that. So, what kind of job are you looking for? Because in the introduction, I said, and because you sent me your golden words, that you're looking for a whole different job because you've been in retail. So, what are you looking for now?
What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to become a recruiter. I'm looking to become that HR person. So
And tell us why. No, I thought I didn't know that pause was that you were going to go on. Tell us why. What is it within you? What kind of skills do you have? What is some kind of passion that's making you even think of going towards HR, who are my favorite clients, by the way?
Well, honestly, I really love training people. And I don't get that very much in my job right now, but I love training people. I love being the person that people go to for help. And I just feel like being in a recruiting position, I'd be able to do that. I would be the person that they go to be seen and heard. I feel like recruiters do that because they're constantly putting people in new positions. They have to listen to who they're talking to. They have to make sure that it's a good fit, and it's attention to detail, it's pattern recognition and stuff like that. And recruiters are amazing at that. You got to remember every little detail about the job and try and place that with a person, and people are unpredictable. So it's really an interesting little profession that where no 2 days would be alike. And that's something that I love about retail, is that my job is the same, but always never the same.
Yes. And that's why you would be just perfect at that, because of some of your experience that you've gleaned from retail, and you know that you need to be listened to, therefore you will listen to people. So what we need many times is what we do as our skills and the kind of person we become. And I agree with you. Recruiters, HR professionals, these are the people who are the glue of the company. It makes, you got a bad HR person or recruiter, that's not a good thing. So when you get, and I sure wish you the best of luck in finding a position in this particular
Thank you.
profession, because you'd be perfect at it. So, Andrea, I am going to ask, this is the last question. Will you please come back?
Absolutely, Joyce.
Woo! Good. I am so glad. Well, thank you. You're a wonderful guest, and I look forward to hearing great things about you after this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that was fun. Andrea is a millennial. She's got the desire to learn. She's ready to make a change in her career. And when you think of the people who are in your company, and if they may sound like Andrea, figure out what she said, how and what companies can do to make them feel welcome, belong, and listened to. And if you get nothing else from this interview, those are the three main things that I really got from the interview. So, again, I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, and I look forward to the next interview. I will invite thought provoking leaders. And if you are a thought provoking leader, if you're an HR professional, please send me an email, joyce@joyceweiss.com, and let's see if we can make it happen. You could be a guest on my show, Kick Conflict to the Curb. I'd love to have you. Well, until next time, I'm going to end with a comment that I usually say on the end of every video. You get what you tolerate. Thanks for watching.